Hey, everybody. My name is Philip Ng. I play Bruce Lee in Birth of the Dragon, and you are watching Cage Nation TV.
Let's go. Welcome to the Cage Nation. Welcome to the Cage Nation. Welcome to the Cage Nation. No one can drop us, no one can stop us. We are the warriors, no one can top us, no one can rock us. We are the warriors, no one can drop us, no one can stop us. We are the warriors, no one can top us, no one can rock us. We are the warriors.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a big deal for us here at Cage Nation TV. We have on the phone with us a martial artist, an actor, an action director, and fight choreographer. He is playing Bruce Lee in the upcoming film Birth of the Dragon. It's hitting theaters August 26th. We have Philip Ng on the phone with us. Philip, how are you doing, sir?
I am a little bit jet lagged, but I am feeling great. And after having gone to 2 screenings / premieres of the movie and hearing the responses of the audience, I am very elated.
Now, I saw the movie, and I have to imagine that the crowd responses have been just immense and immeasurable, correct?
It's overwhelmingly positive, and I thank God for that.
Oh, that is fantastic, and I absolutely understand why. Now, Philip, this is your North American film debut.
Yeah, my first Hollywood movie.
You've done some really good movies before, of course, Wild City, Zombie Fight Club, Sifu vs. Vampire, The Man from Macau, Once Upon a Time in Shanghai. The list goes on and on. But how did the casting go? Like, how long did it take for you to decide that you were going to play Bruce Lee in a film?
It was an interesting experience. My best friend Andy On, my co-star in Once Upon a Time in Shanghai, a movie you just mentioned, he was offered to cast for the movie, but then he told the casting director, he's like, I don't look like Bruce Lee, but I got a friend that kind of does, and he does the same kung fu style, same method as Bruce, and he's been making kung fu movies for a long time. I think he's qualified. Do you want to take a look at him? And they're like, sure, because they're really desperately looking for someone to fit the bill. And so Andy and his fiancée Jessica and our friend Daph, we sat together in his house, or his apartment, and filmed the whole casting tape. Like, we took us 6 hours, but we did it. And then, but once we sent in the tape, we didn't really think about it because we cast for American movies all the time, but we really rarely get it. And especially for the role of Bruce Lee, I didn't even, I didn't want to give myself any false promises or false hopes. So once we sent in the tape, we didn't care, or we tried not to think about it. But I got a call back pretty immediately about this movie, and the director wanted to speak to me. And then I spoke to George Nofi on Skype, and he gave me the impression that he thought that I fulfilled potential qualities to fulfill this role. So, and then after a few months of discussion, some back and forth, I was confirmed for the role, which was surreal, and it's still surreal.
Now, you're already a very accomplished martial artist. 6th-generation disciple of Choi Lee Foot Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Did you have to tweak or make changes to your style in order to play Bruce Lee on the big screen?
Well, not really, because Charlie Foot is what my father teaches. It's a different style than what Bruce Lee has learned. But Bruce Lee did incorporate Charlie Foot in his fighting style. But the main fighting style that Bruce Lee did at that time was Wing Chun. And I studied under Bruce Lee's classmate and instructor, Wang Shenmeng. Bruce Lee's teacher, or his sifu, his master, is Yip Man. And Yip Man had many students, and one of the students that he had was Wang Shenmeng, my teacher. And there's a time that Yip Man was not able to teach Bruce Lee for whatever reason, and he sent Bruce to train with my sifu. So a lot of Bruce Lee's martial arts development, his philosophy that he eventually developed, had its roots with my sifu, and spending time with my sifu. And also, my sifu gave me a lot of insights into his life outside of martial arts. Little stories about Bruce Lee that depicted his personality, the way that he was, and then also working in the Hong Kong movie business for the last 15 years, I got to work with a lot of people that were very close to Bruce at the time. And through them, I heard a lot of stories, too. And then what I did was, because for this role, it was very important for us, because I played other historical figures before in the past, but those historical figures are not very well documented, right? So, like in Once Upon a Time in Shanghai, I played Ma Yongzheng, which is a real person, but it was not very well documented. So I had a lot of room to create this character and fill in the gaps, and it would not be challenged. But Bruce Lee is different. If you put Bruce Lee's name in any search engine, you'll get all the information, all what he looks like, what he sounds like, how he moves, how he acts. So it was very important for us not to imitate him. Because when you imitate a person, you're almost doing like a parody of them, you know? Like if I kept rubbing my nose the whole time, you know, doing that gesture, that would be someone pretending to be Bruce. So what I did was I took all the commonalities of the stories that I've heard of, like the multiple stories I heard about him and from everything that I've read. I took certain commonalities that everyone agreed upon that were close to him, what Bruce Lee was like. And I would try to encompass those aspects of him to react to different situations that are written on the page. So to kind of give an authenticity. Even though this movie is not a biopic, it's not a documentary, whenever I would act as Bruce Lee or be Bruce Lee in the movie, I would react to every situation, whether it happened in real life or not, the way that I feel Bruce Lee would have. So I think in that way, we try to honor him rather than to imitate him.
Very well stated. Now, obviously, you've done a lot of great research into Bruce Lee. What part of that research brought you closest to becoming Bruce Lee, to really capturing his essence?
Well, I've been, like I said, I've been a big fan of Bruce Lee. A lot of my own personal martial arts development has been based on the philosophies that he's been talking about for, this whole life. And, it really influenced me. But the thing is, like, when people get into character, it's a very strange thing. Sometimes you go into wardrobe, you put on some clothes, I know what it's like to be this guy. Or you get a haircut, and I know why he got this haircut and why he's like this. But for me, it was really working on his accent that really helped me internalize what he was. Because if you watch like Bruce Lee's interview, like the Pierre Berton interview or his Green Hornet casting tape, where he's being himself, he's speaking English, and he's being himself. You notice every time he talks, he's a very specific accent. It's kind of like the San Francisco 1960s hippie lingo, plus a little bit of his residual accent from his Hong Kong Chinese, like Hong Kong British English accent combined. But the rhythm in which he talks, and he follows his physical movement, follows his talking movement. If you notice, like maybe as he's talking, his hands and his body moves with the rhythm of his speech. So
I love it.
Once I investigated into that, I really felt I internalized them. I mean, to the point where, I heard this from other actors before, where like they're in a character, it takes them like 3 months to lose those things. And I remember still talking and walking like my interpretation of Bruce Lee months after the show was over. So it was something that I really heavily invested my own time into creating, because it's so important for me to be as authentic as possible when you're playing this legend.
Philip, the movie Birth of the Dragon, set in 1964, Flower Power era is in full swing. It's set in San Francisco. Bruce Lee is teaching students, and a lot of folks are embracing what he's teaching. And you're saying about how Bruce Lee has that 1964 accent to him. With it being 2017, and again, access to all of Bruce Lee's, his interviews, his videos, how do you get into the mind of not only being Bruce Lee, but it being the 1960s?
Oh, it's like that. It's very simple. It is a different mindset. You have to, it's a process, different actors go through. But for me, it was made a lot easier when I walked into the set, because the set dressings were so authentic. There's a scene that they put online, the alley fight that Bruce did in one of the preview clips. And if you notice the clip, and as I'm fighting, a car drives by, and it's a era specific car that drives by. And if you don't look at it, you don't even notice a car drives by. But little attention to details like that are all throughout the set. So when you're walking into that area, you felt like you're in that era. So it's really easy for me to get in the character when you walk on the set.
It was an absolutely very job well done in getting those little period things together. Philip, the last big screen portrayal of Bruce Lee's life was in 1993. Did you embrace that film as part of your performance, or did you steer clear of it completely?
Well, I wouldn't say I steered clear of it or embraced it. It was a movie that I enjoyed with my father when I was young. He took me to the theater to see it. I'm basing my character, basing my performance on Bruce Lee, not another interpretation of Bruce Lee, but the man himself. So, and not to take anything away from Jason's portrayal of Bruce Lee, but different actors have a different interpretation, and I would not interpret this character through another person's interpretation, and I would interpret him through what I felt the real Bruce Lee was. And then I took it in my direction. But no, it was a movie that I enjoyed as a kid. But I think this is Birth of the Dragon is its own distinctive thing.
Birth of the Dragon, I think what it really hit the nail on the head was it was a completely different portrayal of Bruce Lee that maybe we have seen before. There's a lot of scenes in the movie where you're very confident, as you would expect Bruce Lee to be, but in your performance specifically, you can see like a lot of worry and concern behind your eyes. How did you balance those two powerful emotions in your performance?
It's very simple. You really think about the motivations of Bruce Lee. He had very revolutionary ideas at the time that were blasphemous to people in the martial arts circle. He said to people, style doesn't matter. You guys are all stupid. The most important thing is the person himself. People would defend their methods like it was a religion, which is false because martial arts is just a skill set. It's like a basketball player. Basketball players, what they do is to win the game, they would take techniques and strategies that fit their own physical body type and their own mental capacities, right? But they don't defend that style. They just do it because they win. And martial arts should be the same. And people didn't see it that way. And to say something so seemingly blasphemous back in that time, you have to be super confident. And Bruce Lee had that confidence to the point where he knew he was right. And people who don't think he's right would think he was cocky. But at the same time, he would understand that there is that pressure. Everyone is against him. As much as you think you're right, when everyone is against you, you have that worry. So it's easy to balance if you understand the situation. But his ideas are proven right nowadays with the advent of martial arts sports like mixed martial arts, where the goal is not to defend your method. It's not, you don't defend your method against this method. You don't defend your style. Your goal is to beat the other guy up and make money. So when style is no longer a factor, these fighters, they might have a jiu-jitsu background or Thai boxing background, but they have to integrate methods and strategies from other methods to make themselves a complete fighter for the goal of winning the fight, not defending the style. So because you have to defend the style and force yourself to do it, you're limited. You can't expand. You cannot be the best that you can be. And it makes perfect sense now because we have so much illustration of this concept. But back in the 60s, they didn't. And when Bruce Lee said this, he had to have that confidence. But at the same time, all the people against him would make him worry. So if you understand, when you're an actor, you understand the situation, you understand the motivations behind that person, it's not very difficult to do.
Birth of the Dragon, which comes out August 26th. Make sure everyone's getting their tickets and go see this movie. It's absolutely incredible. That movie has some of the most action-packed action I've seen in a movie in a very, very long time. You're a very skilled martial artist, but you're also incredibly in shape. What is your training regimen like to stay in that kind of like peak physical performance?
No, it was because I haven't really. During that time, I produced a movie which I acted in, and right after that, I did a TV series in Hong Kong called A Fist Within Four Walls, which I played a Thai boxer, and then I had to be super fit for that. And 2 days after I finished that shoot, I flew to Vancouver to start shooting. So I already had a base. In a lot of movies, I have to take off my shirt, and just the nature of the job, because when people see that you're physically fit, they assume that you have a physical capacity to do martial arts. So, but in real life, real awesome fighters don't really have that physique. They need that body fat to sustain their endurance. But whatever the case, for me, it was just maintaining that shape that I had from the previous show and watching my diet. I think training regimen, everyone has a different regimen for what works for them. But I think the common thing is the diet. Abs are made in the kitchen. So you have to be very careful about what you eat, which was very difficult for me because it was my first Hollywood movie and there was food everywhere. There was good food everywhere and I couldn't eat any of it. So that was the hardest part. And especially when I have my friends come visit the set and they would eat donuts in front of me. That was the worst.
Oh, that is the worst.
I know. I love donuts.
I do too. I'm not going to lie, Philip. I also love donuts. Birth of the Dragon is a movie that is centered around the legend that started between the kung fu battle between Bruce Lee and Wong Jack Man. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Bruce Lee, obviously a Hollywood actor, action star. Wong Jack Man, a Shaolin priest, coming from China. The actual Wong Jack Man served as a consultant for the film. Did you have a chance to sit down with him and and talk about his take or how the fight actually went between he and Lee?
We didn't specifically talk about the fight, but I did sit down and talk to him and some of the students and met with him. He's a man of few words. He doesn't speak too much about the experience, but he's a nice guy. And I mean, I enjoyed talking to him. But I mean, we have to understand that this movie is it's not a biopic. It's not a documentary. It's historical fiction. It's a kung fu fable, fan fiction, if you will. And but it still stays true to the spirit of Bruce Lee. Like I said, it might be embellished situations, but the way I portrayed it, I tried to portray it, was that I portrayed it if it was a real situation, how a person with those characteristics would react. So, but I think the audience, if you come in with the mindset that this is a fun kung fu movie inspired by a real event, they will enjoy it a lot.
That is a great way to put it. Regardless, you go see Birth of the Dragon, you're going to be entertained without a shred of doubt. Now, Philip, as a martial artist yourself, and not as a movie star, but as a martial artist, do you see yourself relating more with Bruce Lee's evolution of Kung Fu, the having no way is way, or Wong Jack Man's ideals of staying traditional?
Absolutely Bruce Lee. Because Bruce Lee is correct, and it's been proven correct to this day, like my example with MMA. Because training martial arts for me is you have to understand the goal of the skill set is to have me be able to incapacitate my opponent while taking minimum damage, and that is the goal. And if you understand your goal, you automatically, in achieving that goal, gain discipline, gain physical, conditioning, and spirituality and so forth. But if you focus on those things, I'd rather you go to church or go to the gym and lift or work out or join the army for discipline, because those things are side benefits. When people are training a specific skill set, they have to know what that skill set's for. It's like cooking. It doesn't matter if you work at a 5-star hotel as a chef or you're flipping burgers. It doesn't matter. You're creating food to be consumed. You have to understand that point. When you're doing kung fu, you're doing kung fu. You're learning a martial art. You're learning a strategy and a training regimen for you to incapacitate the person in front of you. And in achieving any goal, I mean, it doesn't matter if you want to be a superb basketball player, superb baseball player. In achieving that goal, you automatically, because to achieve that goal, you need to be disciplined. You need to have physical, abilities. You need to conditioning and all those things. Those become side benefits that come at its fullest when you focus on your goal. So I truly, honestly, am an advocate of what Bruce Lee says and what his philosophies are.
Well, speaking of Bruce Lee and his philosophies, a lot of people feel that the fight with Wong Jack Man led Bruce Lee to develop Jeet Kune Do. Do you agree with that, or do you feel that it was something?
I mean, he actually said it himself. I mean, Bruce Lee. I mean, that this fight led him to realize certain truths, and he changed. He did not change. He evolved himself to a point where he was able to accommodate for some of the shortcomings that happened during that fight. And those weren't, obviously those are debated. Exactly what happened in that fight. The one thing we do know is after the fight, he developed a new philosophy of martial arts called Jeet Kune Do, and that changed the landscape of martial arts forever.
Again, talking to Philip Ng as a martial arts expert. Bruce Lee studied a lot of Wing Chun. How much traditional Wing Chun do you think still exists in Jeet Kune Do today, or has it completely evolved into something else?
I mean, I'm no Jeet Kune Do expert, but I do know that Jeet Kune Do is divided into two main branches now. The OJKD, original JKD, based on Seattle, based on the Zhenban Kung Fu regiment that he had back in Seattle. And there's JKD Concepts, headed by Danny DeSanto in San Francisco or LA, I don't remember. In California. So I think with original JKD, I think more of the Wing Chun elements are still existent in there, and whereas in Jeet Kune Do Concepts, they still have I know that the base training is Zhenban Kung Fu, but they branch off from that and develop styles or integrate methods that are outside of Wing Chun more. This is my interpretation of it because I'm not an expert in JKD, so.
And truth be told, Philip, you're more of an expert on it than I am. That's why I'm deferring to you on such things, and that's excellent insight. For anyone who's on the fence about going to see Birth of the Dragon, you need to go see it. One, because it's entertaining, very entertaining, but two, it also has a very, very healthy blend of modern take plus tradition. I mean, I absolutely appreciated all the traditional and evolution characteristics in the movie. Now, there's a very good chance that this movie could be the revival of kung fu movies in North America. Can you see yourself being involved with that kind of movement?
If anything, if this movie starts it, I think I'm already part of it. And yeah, but I mean, the thing is, I'm very satisfied with my career in Asia right now, and whatever happens, happens. But if I'm afforded more opportunities in the U.S., I would gladly welcome it.
Fantastic. Now, okay, Philip Ng is given the opportunity to be in any action movie with any action star besides Bruce Lee. That one's a given. You could be in any action movie with any action star you like. Who would it be and why?
Well, Jet Li, because out of all my kung fu heroes that I grew up watching, he's the only person that I've never worked with.
That's an excellent answer, sir. I like it. Now,
Thank you.
studying everything you've studied, martial arts wise, what is the one thing you take the most pride in, or you feel that is your best accomplishment?
I think my best accomplishment is not so much my own development, but the development of my teaching methodology. Because at my kung fu school, the Ng Family Chinese Martial Arts Association, which my father runs, and my students are helping me teach a Wing Chun regimen. It's important because a lot of times in kung fu and a lot of martial arts, you learn the form and you learn the application. But doing that application under pressure, there's no learning process that brings a person to that point. So a lot of times when these people are faced with a situation where they're under pressure, they're not able to execute these techniques because they've never practiced it under pressure. So it's akin to what Jigoro Kano did with judo. The father of judo, Jigoro Kano, I hope I'm not butchering his name, he was a jiu-jitsu practitioner prior to developing judo. And back then, they were basically taught the application, and they would just do two-man exercises without much pressure. But he felt that he was an educator himself, so he developed judo, in which randori, when they're on the ground rolling around and stuff like that, trying to get those holds, get those locks, and get those throws under pressure when both opponents are giving each other realistic pressure. Those people, when they had a tournament against traditional jiu-jitsu people, even though they took out a lot of the so-called lethal techniques, they would dominate because they're able to have that training methodology, which puts them under pressure and being able to perform the necessary things that the skill set requires. And for me, having a degree in education, a master's in education, I think it really helped me in developing teaching methodologies in my own kung fu school, which I think do not exist in a lot of kung fu schools. So all my students get the same information, and they get a very specific training regimen, which leads them from point A to point B. Point A, learning the application, and then having a training methodology in the middle that slowly, progressively brings them to be able to use their skill set in a real-time and full-pressure situation.
Philip, I had a question ready that I think your excellent answers have already kind of modified that. The first question was going to be, do you consider yourself a martial artist more than an actor, or an actor more than a martial artist? But now we need to ask, do you consider yourself more of a teacher, even more than those? I'm always be a martial artist first. Everything I do now, and the reason that I moved to Hong Kong to pursue a career in martial arts movies is because I was a martial artist first, right? Every martial arts kid has a dream of making kung fu movies. I just kind of make that realistic, and work for it. But everything that I know, I relate to the martial arts. And I think there's for instance, in Wing Chun, we have 3 principles that we abide by that guides all our actions. It's simplicity, efficiency, and directness. And I find that applies to life as well. Sometimes being simple and direct is way hard because as human beings, I find that the nature of us is to complicate things. And that seems like something that we do more than simplify. So, and I find that when you try to really focus on trying to solve a problem in the most simple, direct, and efficient way possible, that's usually the best way to solve the problem. All right. Now, Philip, a lot of really good martial artists worked on this film. A lot. You can tell that whenever you go see Birth of the Dragon on August 26th. A lot of really good martial artists worked on that. Was there ever any temptation for you guys to go in there and spar or try to see, try to one-up each other between takes or anything like that?
Well, that didn't happen on set at all, because I think everyone's very professional, and I think we all know that movie fighting is different than real fighting. But I did do a series of documentaries back in Hong Kong called Kung Fu Quest, which which led me to different countries to spar against, literally spar against different methods to illustrate how their fighting style works. And that was a more appropriate way to do it. But on the set, no, there wasn't any of that. I think there's a lot of camaraderie. A lot of people, we learn and work with each other and try to improve each other rather than kind of like try to one up each other. But I mean, it was that environment. Like the stunt team were great. I mean, Corey's stunt team I know from a long time ago, but the local stunt team led by Andrew, the local stunt coordinator there, and the stuntmen and the martial artists from Vancouver are very, very good. And the reason I have to say that is because I run a martial arts, action choreography team in Hong Kong myself, and I've worked with stuntmen all around the world. And nothing beats experience, I mean, it doesn't matter how much you learn, but practical experience is the greatest teacher. And then I do notice there's a lot of shows being filmed in Canada now, and then these stuntmen, they get to work on these shows all the time. So they're always constantly in practice. And I was very pleased when I fought with them, and because their rhythm, the way that they stepped up, positioning in the fights and all that, it was very professional, and it's very akin to the style that I'm used to in Hong Kong. So, yeah, I mean, it was more of a mutual, everyone trying to help each other out more so than trying to one up each other.
That's fantastic. Philip, I myself am a guy who knows about Western combat competition. And I love learning about the Eastern concept. So the movie like Birth of the Dragon, while it is a lot of fun to watch, it's very entertaining, there's also a lot of substance in it as well. For a guy like me who knows Western combat, what is one thing that you think is important for me to understand about Wing Chun to appreciate it more?
Well, Wing Chun is very simple, direct, and efficient. And it is a combat method. The structure and the nature of the generation of power is slightly different than something like boxing. But fighting is fighting, and we all have, fighting, regardless if you're doing boxing, fencing, savate, or, Greco-Roman, you have a goal of incapacitating your opponent. It's just every style. The way to differentiate between different methods, mainly from my experiences, is generation of power and execution of technique. And the generation of power dictates your structure, the biomechanics, and so that's why different styles move differently. Because when your body is in a different structure, you generate power differently. And that structure dictates the strategy of which you fight. Because certain structures have weaknesses, which you have to protect, and have strengths that you want to exploit. So with Wing Chun, it's hard to describe without being there physically. But I think it's one of the most direct. I would say my Kung Fu brother had a good description of Wing Chun. It's Kung Fu distilled. It's the essence of Kung Fu. It only has 3 forms, and 3 hand forms, 2 weapon forms, and a dummy form. Whereas a lot of other martial arts, even Charlie Foot, has hundreds and hundreds of different forms and patterns, which I think are unnecessary. And within those 3 hand sets encompasses all the theory and all the techniques and all the training regimen necessary for you to become an efficient fighter when trained correctly.
Fantastic. And I appreciate that answer, Philip. That was actually exactly what I was looking for. Now, you're given the opportunity. You get to ask Bruce Lee one question. What would you ask him?
Did I do a good job portraying you?
That's a great answer. And, I, as a fan of Bruce Lee and martial arts myself, again, thoroughly enjoyed Birth of the Dragon, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in the theaters, but also grabbing it for my home video collection. Now, after seeing Birth of the Dragon, I can tell you that I'm a big Philip Ng fan, and I'm very much looking forward to watching movies. So, what's next? What's coming up after Birth of the Dragon? What can I expect?
I have about 5 movies releasing in Asia soon, and and at the same time, I've been working on 3 or 4 projects that are still in production. 2 movies I'd like to talk about. One is called Color of the Game, which premieres in Hong Kong on September 4th. It's a gangster movie. I was the action director on it, as well as one of the leads, and I'm pretty proud of that one. And another movie I'm very proud of is called Undercover Punch and Gun. It's a movie that's akin to those 80s Jackie Chan movies, because those movies really influenced me, and I wanted to produce a movie that was, akin to that spirit of that. And it was my first time being a producer. And it was a difficult job because I was also the action director and one of the leads in the show. But it afforded me a lot of creative freedom and control. And I was able to hire my 2 best friends to be the other leads in the movie, Andy On and Vanessa Wu. And we worked really hard on that movie. We're really proud of the results. It should be out later this year or early next year.
Fantastic. Now, Philip, I feel like we've been talking for about a half hour now. I like to think we're friends. Like, we're buddies now, right?
Yeah, we're best friends now.
Okay, cool. All right, so now I need to call in a best friend favor and have you talk to the folks at WWE Studios. I would like to see a sequel to Birth of the Dragon that kind of focuses on Wong Jack-Man. Would you be involved in that kind of project? I
would be involved in the project if the story is correct and the story is interesting. And I think they have a lot of ideas in mind. And I think the movie can go in a very interesting direction with the two characters that are introduced in the movie.
Absolutely. I think a lot of folks just really, that your description was great, that it's a great entertaining fan fiction kind of movie based on a lot of reality. Birth of the Dragon opens August 26th, directed by George Nolfi, starring Philip Ng as Bruce Lee. It centers around the legendary fight between Wong Jack-Man and Bruce Lee that started this whole thing off. Presented by WWE Studios, right? And BH Tilt?
Yeah, I think they're distributors of the show. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Two great studios coming together for a great martial arts movie. I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't for martial arts movie. So, Mr. Philip, thank you very much for joining us on Cage Nation TV. Birth of the Dragon in theaters the 26th. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let's go. Ah.